The year was 2347, and humanity had finally started to spread beyond Earth. Small colonies dotted the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Mining stations floated in the asteroid belt. A few brave souls had even traveled to distant stars, building tiny settlements on planets that orbited alien suns. Humans believed they were alone in the universe. They thought the stars belonged to them. They were wrong. On a quiet Tuesday morning, every screen on Earth went dark. Televisions, phones, computers, and billboards all showed the same thing: static. Then the static cleared, and humanity saw its first alien. The creature was made of living crystal. Light moved through its body like blood through veins. Its face had no eyes, no mouth, no nose. Instead, hundreds of tiny crystals shifted and clicked against each other when it spoke. Its voice was cold, like wind blowing through an empty cave. "Species 7841, the crystal being said. "You are the inhabitants of the planet you call Earth. I am Ambassador Verteeth of the Galactic Conclave. We have watched your species for some time now. You have begun to expand beyond your home world. This is not permitted." The message played in every language on Earth at the same time. No one could change the channel. No one could turn off their devices. The whole world had no choice but to listen. "The Galactic Conclave has ruled this galaxy for 3 million years, Verteeth continued. "We are a coalition of 4,000 species. We maintain order. We maintain peace. And we do not tolerate species that expand without our permission." The camera angle changed, and humans saw something that made their blood run cold. Behind the ambassador, floating in the blackness of space, was a fleet of warships. Each ship was the size of a small moon. There were thousands of them, tens of thousands. They stretched across the void like an endless wall of metal and death. "You have 90 of your planetary rotations to comply with our demands," Verteeth said. "You will surrender all territories beyond your home planet. You will destroy all spacecraft capable of interstellar travel. You will accept Conclave Integration Protocol, which will assign your species its proper place in galactic society." The ambassador paused. The crystals in his body clicked and shifted. "If you do not comply, your species will be removed from existence. Every human will die. Your cities will be dust. Your planet will be broken into pieces and scattered across space. No one will remember you ever existed." The transmission ended. Screens around the world returned to normal. But nothing was normal anymore. Panic spread like wildfire. In New York, people ran screaming through the streets. In Tokyo, traffic froze as drivers abandoned their cars. In London, the Prime Minister collapsed during an emergency broadcast. Religious leaders declared the end of days. Stock markets crashed within minutes. Military bases went to high alert. Everyone knew their weapons were useless against ships the size of moons. World leaders held emergency meetings. Scientists calculated the odds of survival. Military commanders drew up battle plans that they knew would fail. The numbers were clear. Humanity had about 200 warships. The Conclave had at least 10,000, probably more. Each enemy ship was larger and more powerful than anything humans had ever built. Some leaders argued for immediate surrender. "We cannot fight this," said the president of the European Federation. "If we surrender now, at least some of us might survive. At least humanity will continue to exist, even as slaves." Others disagreed. "Slavery is not survival," said the Prime Minister of India. "What kind of life would our children have? What kind of future?" The arguments continued for days. Meanwhile, ordinary people made their own choices. Some spent their final days with family. Some fell into despair. Some prayed to gods they had never believed in before. And some refused to accept that this was the end, in the heart of Geneva. Deep beneath the mountains of Switzerland, the United Earth Defense Council held its most important meeting in history. Military leaders from every nation sat around a massive table. Holographic displays showed the enemy fleet. Still waiting at the edge of the solar system like wolves watching their prey, Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood at the head of the table. She was 63 years old, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen decades of conflict. She had fought in the water wars of 2298. She had commanded the fleet that stopped the Mars Rebellion. She had never lost a battle in her entire career, but this was different. This was not a battle between nations. This was not a fight between equals. This was a god looking down at an ant and telling it to crawl. "The odds are impossible," said General Morrison, the American commander. "Our weapons cannot scratch their shields. Our ships cannot outrun their fighters. We have 90 days to build a fleet that would take us 50 years to construct. There is no path to victory." Admiral Tanaka listened to every argument. She watched the fear in her colleagues' eyes. She studied the holographic display of the enemy fleet, counting the ships, measuring their formations, analyzing their positions. Then she smiled. Everyone in the room stared at her. They thought she had gone mad. "Admiral," General Morrison said carefully, "did you hear what I said? There is no path to victory." "I heard you," Tanaka replied, "and I disagree." She walked to the holographic display and pointed at the alien fleet. "Look at them. They are not preparing for battle. They are waiting. They expect us to surrender. They have given us 90 days, because they are certain we will use that time to argue among ourselves and eventually give up." "Because that is the logical choice," said the Chinese general. "Yes," Tanaka agreed. "It is the logical choice. But logic is not the only way to win a war." She turned to face the assembled leaders. "The Conclave has ruled the galaxy for 3 million years. They have conquered thousands of species, and every single one of those species surrendered when faced with overwhelming force. The Conclave does not know how to fight an enemy that refuses to give up. We cannot win," General Morrison insisted. "Perhaps not," Tanaka admitted, "but we can make them bleed. We can make them pay for every inch of space they take. We can show them that humans do not break easily. And maybe, just maybe, we can find a way to survive." The room fell silent. Every leader looked at each other, weighing the choice before them. Surrender and live as slaves, or fight and probably die. Admiral Tanaka spoke once more. "They have made a mistake. They told us exactly how long we have. And they have no idea what humans can do in 90 days when our backs are against the wall." The vote was unanimous. Earth would not surrender. Earth would fight. And somewhere in the cold depths of space, Ambassador Verdith had no idea that he had just started a war that would change the galaxy forever. 7 days had passed since. The alien ultimatum. 7 days of fear, chaos, and uncertainty. But something strange was happening on Earth. Something the Conclave had never seen before in 3 million years of conquest. Humanity was coming together. On the morning of the 7th day, every broadcast frequency in the solar system carried the same signal. Television stations interrupted their programming. Radio channels went silent. Even the Conclave's own communication networks picked up the transmission. Someone on Earth wanted the whole galaxy to hear what they had to say. Secretary General Marcus Webb stood at a podium in the United Nations General Assembly. He was a tall man with dark skin and calm eyes. Behind him, the flags of every nation on Earth hung in a perfect row. American and Russian flags stood side by side. Chinese and Indian flags touched at the edges. For the first time in human history, there were no enemies in this room. Only humans. "To the Galactic Conclave," Webb began, his voice steady and strong. "We have received your ultimatum. We have heard your demands. We have considered your threats." He paused, letting the silence stretch across the stars. "And we have reached a decision." On his flagship at the edge of the solar system, Ambassador Verteeth watched the transmission with growing confusion. The human's voice carried no fear. His body showed no signs of surrender. This was not how conquered species behaved. "Earth does not surrender," Webb continued. "Earth does not kneel. Earth does not beg for mercy. You have come to our home and threatened our children. You have demanded that we become your slaves. You have promised to destroy everything we have ever built." The Secretary General leaned forward, his eyes burning with a fire that had not existed in human leaders for generations. "We reject your ultimatum. We reject your authority. We reject your right to rule the galaxy. His voice rose with each word. You want our world? Come and take it. But know this. For every city you burn, we will destroy 100 of your ships. For every human life you take, 1,000 of your soldiers will fall. You think you understand war? You have never faced humanity. The camera pulled back to show the entire assembly. Representatives from every nation stood and applauded. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. Webb raised his hand for silence. Then he spoke the words that would echo across the galaxy for centuries to come.
Ow.
This is the official response of the human race to the Galactic Conclave. We declare war, not just on your fleet, not just on your soldiers. We declare war on the Conclave itself. We will fight you in space. We will fight you on the ground. We will fight you with weapons you have never seen and tactics you cannot understand. And we will never, ever stop. The transmission ended. Ambassador Vertith stood in stunned silence on his bridge. His crystalline body flickered with colors that his crew had never seen before: confusion, disbelief, and something that might have been fear. Ambassador? His second-in-command asked carefully. What are your orders? Vertith did not answer immediately. In 3 million years, the Conclave had conquered over 4,000 species. Every single one had surrendered when faced with overwhelming force. Some had begged for mercy. Some had offered tribute. Some had tried to negotiate. But none had ever declared war on the Conclave itself. They are insane, Vertith finally said. They have no chance of victory. Their weapons are primitive. Their ships are slow. Their technology is millions of years behind ours. Then we destroy them? His officer asked. Vertith nodded slowly. Yes, we destroy them. But we must be careful. Insane creatures are unpredictable. Increase security on all vessels. Begin scanning for any unusual activity in the system. On Earth, the reaction to Webb's speech was immediate and overwhelming. People poured into the streets, not in panic, but in celebration. They waved flags and sang songs. They hugged strangers and cried tears of pride. For the first time since the aliens arrived, humanity felt something other than fear. They felt hope. But hope alone would not win the war. Admiral Tanaka knew this better than anyone. While the world celebrated, she was already working on the next phase of her plan. In the hours following the declaration, something unprecedented happened. Every nation on Earth signed the Unity Accord, a document that merged all military forces under a single command. Russian submarines now answered to the same chain of command as American aircraft carriers. Chinese satellites shared data with European space stations. African nations opened their vast mineral reserves to support the war effort. Scientists who had worked in secret for rival governments now shared their research freely. Engineers from different countries collaborated on designs that had been classified for decades. Factories that had produced consumer goods switched to military production overnight. The entire economic and industrial might of humanity focused on a single goal: survival. Admiral Tanaka activated Project Prometheus, a secret program that had existed only in theory until now. Hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt came to life. Mining operations on the moons of Jupiter doubled their output. Weapons laboratories began testing devices that most scientists had considered impossible. The Admiral gathered her command staff in a secure bunker beneath the Swiss Alps. Holographic displays showed the current state of human forces: 187 combat-ready vessels, 340,000 trained soldiers, and enough nuclear weapons to destroy Earth 10 times over? It is not enough, General Morrison said grimly. Even if we triple our production, we cannot match their numbers. Then we will not try to match their numbers, Tanaka replied. We will fight differently. We will use our weaknesses as strengths. She pulled up a display of Conclave technology. Their ships are powerful, but they are also complex. They rely on interconnected systems and networked defenses. If we can disrupt those networks even for a few seconds, their ships become vulnerable. How do we disrupt networks that are 3 million years more advanced than ours? Another officer asked. Tanaka smiled. with something they will never expect, something so primitive that their sensors will not recognize it as a threat. She began outlining her plan. It was crazy. It was desperate. It relied on the Conclave underestimating humanity at every turn. It was exactly the kind of plan that only humans would think of in laboratories around the world. Scientists worked without sleep. In shipyards across the solar system, workers pushed themselves beyond exhaustion. In training camps on every continent, soldiers prepared for a war unlike any humanity had ever fought. Ambassador Varteeth watched the unusual activity with growing unease. His sensors detected increased communication traffic, unusual energy signatures, and strange movements in the asteroid belt. Something was happening, but he could not understand what. He sent a message to the Conclave. Council, Species 7841 has declared war. They appear to be mobilizing for combat. Recommend increased surveillance and possible acceleration of the elimination timeline. The response came quickly. Proceed as planned. One primitive species cannot threaten the Conclave. Their declaration of war is meaningless. Varteeth was not so sure. For the first time in his long life, he felt something he could not name. It was small and cold, sitting in the center of his crystalline mind. It was doubt and deep in space. Humanity continued to prepare. 90 days was not much time. But humans had built empires in less. They had survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. They had climbed from caves to the stars in the blink of a cosmic eye. The galaxy had never seen anything like them, and it was about to find out why. Day 45 arrived with cold silence in the depths of space. The Conclave's forward scout fleet moved through the Kuiper Belt. That vast ring of ice and rock at the edge of the solar system. 53 warships glided through the darkness, each one carrying enough firepower to level a continent. Commander Trix stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, his scaled body gleaming under the ship's artificial lights. He was a Vorlon, a reptilian species that had served the Conclave as warriors for over 1,000,000 years. His people had conquered hundreds of worlds. They had never known defeat. Scum the area, Trix ordered. Look for any signs of human military activity. His sensors officer worked the controls. Nothing significant, Commander. I am detecting thousands of small objects scattered throughout the belt. They appear to be mining vessels. Automated, no weapon signatures. Trix nodded with satisfaction. As expected, the humans are hiding on their little planet, waiting for death. They talk bravely, but when faced with real power, they cower like all the others. The fleet continued forward. On every ship, crews relaxed. This mission would be easy. The humans were primitive, afraid, and hopelessly outmatched. Some officers even felt disappointed. They had hoped for a real battle. They would get their wish in the darkness of space. Hidden among the asteroids and ice, Captain Elena Vasquez waited aboard the ESS Defiance. She was 34 years old, with dark hair and eyes that had seen too much death in too few years. Her ship was ugly, a converted cargo freighter covered in weapons that looked like they belonged in a museum. The hull was patched in a dozen places. The engines made sounds that no engine should make, but Elena loved her ship, and she trusted her crew with her life. Status report, she said quietly. All systems ready, Captain, her first officer replied. The other ships are in position. We are waiting for your signal. Elena looked at her tactical display. The Conclave fleet was moving exactly where Admiral Tanaka had predicted. They were passing through a narrow corridor between two large asteroids. Their sensors were focused forward, looking for human warships. They were not looking at the mining vessels. Activate the graveyard, Elena ordered. Throughout the Kuiper Belt, thousands of automated mining ships came to life. They were old, cheap, and expendable. Each one had been retrofitted with a single addition: a nuclear warhead. The Conclave fleet detected the activation almost immediately. Commander, the sensors officer reported. The mining vessels are powering up their engines. Trix frowned. Mining vessels. Ignore them. They are not a threat. But Commander, they are moving toward us. Then destroy them if they get too close. We have more important things to worry about. That was his mistake. The mining vessels did not attack the Conclave ships directly. Instead, they flew into the space between the warships and detonated simultaneously. Thousands of nuclear explosions lit up the darkness like a second sun. The blasts were not strong enough to damage Conclave shields, but they created an electromagnetic pulse that covered the entire fleet for exactly 4.7 seconds. Every Conclave ship went blind. Their sensors showed nothing but static. Their communications went dead. Their network defense systems, which had protected them for millions of years, crashed completely, and in those 4.7 seconds, the human fleet struck. 37 ships emerged from hiding places throughout the asteroid belt. They were not elegant or advanced. They were ugly, angular, covered in weapons that the Conclave considered obsolete. Railguns that fired metal slugs at incredible speeds. Chemical rockets with nuclear tips. Missiles guided by simple computers instead of advanced AI. Captain Vasquez led the charge. All ships, weapons-free? Make them remember this day. The Defiance's railguns fired first. Metal slugs the size of cars slammed into a Conclave cruiser at thousands of kilometers per second. The shields, still rebooting from the EMP, offered no resistance. The slugs tore through the hull like paper. Explosions bloomed across the enemy fleet. Human missiles found their targets with deadly accuracy. Railgun fire punched through armor that had never been breached before. For the first time in living memory, Conclave warships died at the hands of a younger species. Commander? Trix watched in horror as his ships were destroyed around him. His sensors were still recovering. He could not coordinate his fleet. He could not even see the enemy clearly. Return fire, he screamed. All ships, return fire. But the humans were already gone. They had struck fast, done their damage, and vanished back into the asteroid field. By the time Conclave weapons were online, there was nothing to shoot at. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When the electromagnetic interference finally cleared, Trix counted the cost. 17 Conclave vessels destroyed, 12 more badly damaged. Over 8,000 crew members dead. The humans had not lost a single ship. Trix sent his report to Ambassador Verdith, with hands that trembled despite himself. He included every detail: the trap, the EMP, the primitive weapons that should not have been able to hurt them, the speed and coordination of the human attack. On his flagship, Verdith read the report 3 times. He could not believe what he was seeing. This was impossible. The mathematics did not allow for this outcome, but the evidence was clear. 17 of his ships were debris floating in the void, and the humans responsible had escaped without a scratch. Within hours, the news spread across Conclave communication networks. Species 7841 had engaged a Conclave fleet and won. They had used tricks and traps and primitive weapons to defeat a superior force. They had drawn first blood. The reaction was immediate. Species that had been conquered by the Conclave began whispering among themselves. If the humans could hurt the Conclave, maybe the Conclave was not invincible after all. Maybe resistance was possible. Ambassador Verdith recognized the danger immediately. He sent urgent messages to the High Council. We must crush the humans quickly. Every day they survive, they become a symbol of defiance. Other species are watching. We cannot allow this to continue, the High Council agreed. Reinforcements were ordered from across the galaxy. 50,000 additional warships would join the fleet. The largest military force in Conclave history would descend upon Earth, but it would take time for those ships to arrive. And in that time, humanity continued to fight. Captain Vasquez returned to Earth a hero. Her crew received medals and promotions. Songs were written about the Battle of the Kuiper Belt. Children played games where they pretended to be brave human pilots, destroying evil alien invaders. Admiral Janaka allowed the celebrations, but she did not join them. She knew the truth. They had won a battle, not the war. The real test was still coming. She looked at her tactical display, watching the enemy fleet regroup and advance. More ships were coming. The odds were still impossible, but for the first time, impossible did not feel quite so final. Humanity had proven that they could hurt the enemy. Now, they just had to figure out how to beat them. And somewhere in the back of her mind, Tanaka was already working on a plan. Day 72 brought darkness to the solar system. The Conclave had learned from its mistakes. They were no longer underestimating humanity. The main fleet advanced in a wall of death. 10,000 warships moved through space in perfect formation. Their shields overlapped, creating an impenetrable barrier. Their weapon systems no longer relied on networked defenses. Each ship operated independently, immune to the EMP tricks that had worked before. And behind them, more ships kept coming. Reinforcements from across the galaxy poured through faster than light gates. 20,000, 30,000, 40,000. The largest fleet ever assembled in Conclave. History gathered at the edge of human space. Ambassador Verteeth watched the numbers grow with cold satisfaction. There would be no more surprises. No more tricks. The humans had shown they could be dangerous. Now they would be crushed with overwhelming force. On Earth, Admiral Tanaka watched the same numbers with grim acceptance. Her tricks had worked once. They would not work again. The Mars colonies are evacuated, General Morrison reported. Europa base has been destroyed to prevent capture. Saturn's shipyards fell this morning. We lost 32 vessels and 12,000 people. Tanaka nodded slowly. Every loss hurt. Every death was a weight on her soul. But she could not afford to show weakness. Not now. What about the inner defenses? She asked, holding for now. But the enemy is pushing hard. We estimate they will reach Earth within 5 days. 5 days. That was all the time humanity had left. 5 days to find a miracle. The Conclave fleet swept through the outer solar system like a tide of destruction. Human defense stations were obliterated. Hidden weapon platforms were destroyed before they could fire. Brave volunteers and suicide drones crashed into enemy ships, sacrificing their lives to take down even one Conclave vessel. But it was not enough. For every alien ship destroyed, 10 more took its place. The mathematics had not changed. Humanity was still losing. Admiral Tanaka spent sleepless nights in her command center searching for any advantage. Her staff brought her reports of failed attacks, destroyed outposts, and rising casualty numbers. The people of Earth were scared. Some had started surrendering individually, broadcasting messages to the Conclave begging for mercy. The alien response was always the same: silence. Then, on the morning of day 73, Tanaka received a message that changed everything. It came from Antarctica. From a research station that officially did not exist. The message was short, encrypted with codes that only the highest-ranking officers could read. Admiral Tanaka, the message said. This is Dr. Amara Okonkwo. I have found something. Please come immediately. This could win the war. Tanaka flew to Antarctica herself. The research station was buried deep beneath the ice, accessible only by a single elevator shaft that dropped 3 kilometers into the frozen earth. She found Dr. Okonkwo waiting for her at the bottom. Amara Okonkwo was a small woman with graying hair and eyes that burned with excitement. She had spent her entire career studying alien technology captured from the few Conclave probes that had visited Earth over the centuries. What did you find? Tanaka asked without preamble. Okonkwo led her through a maze of corridors to a laboratory filled with alien equipment. In the center of the room, a holographic display showed something that looked like a map of the galaxy. I have been studying Conclave communication systems, Okonkwo explained. Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it is built on something older, something they did not create themselves. She pointed to the holographic display. Tiny points of light were scattered across the galaxy, connected by invisible threads. 3 million years ago, before the Conclave existed, another civilization ruled this galaxy. We call them the Architects. They built a network of communication nodes that allows instant contact across the entire Milky Way, faster than light, instant, perfect. The Conclave uses this network, Tanaka asked. They do more than use it. They depend on it. Their entire empire is held together by the Architects' technology. Without it, they would fall apart. Tanaka felt her heart beat faster. Can we destroy it? Okonkwo shook her head. No, the network is too vast, too well protected, but we can do something better. She pulled up another display, showing a complex wave pattern. I found this buried in the network's code. A frequency, a key. The architects hid it millions of years ago, waiting for someone to find it. What does the key do? Okonkwo's eyes gleamed. It activates dormant systems throughout the galaxy. Defense platforms, communication arrays, data archives. The architects left behind more than just a communication network. They left behind a message. What kind of message? I do not know yet. But I know this. The Conclave has been hiding something from the galaxy for 3 million years. Something the architects wanted everyone to know. If we broadcast this frequency, the truth will come out. Tanaka studied the display for a long moment. This was a risk. They did not know what the architect's message contained. It could be helpful. It could be useless. It could make things worse. But they were out of options. The enemy fleet would reach Earth in days. Their defenses were crumbling. Every conventional strategy had failed. How do we broadcast the frequency? Tanaka finally asked. We need every human transmitter in the solar system to broadcast it simultaneously. The combined signal will be strong enough to reach the entire network. Tanaka nodded. Do it. Prepare everything. We broadcast on day 89. Why wait? Okonkwo asked. Because I want the enemy fleet as close as possible when the truth comes out. Whatever happens next, I want Ambassador Verteeth to watch it happen. She turned to leave, then paused. Dr. Okonkwo, if this works, you will have saved the human race. Okonkwo smiled grimly. And if it does not work, then we will have tried everything. And that is all anyone can ask. In the days that followed, humanity prepared for its final gamble. The fleet gathered around Earth, every ship that could still fly. Soldiers said goodbye to their families. Scientists made final calculations. Religious leaders held services for billions of people who were preparing to die, and through it all, the Conclave fleet drew closer. 60,000 ships surrounded the small blue planet. Like a swarm of predators circling wounded prey, Ambassador Verteeth prepared his victory speech. In a few hours, humanity would be nothing but ash and memory. The rebellion would be over. The galaxy would remember this as the day the Conclave proved its absolute power. He had no idea that humanity still had one card left to play, and it was about to change. Everything day 89 arrived with the weight of fate pressing down on every human soul. Earth hung in space like a blue jewel surrounded by darkness. Above it, 60,000 Conclave warships blocked out the stars. The largest fleet in galactic history had come to witness the death of a species ambassador. Bartith stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the small planet turn slowly below. In a few hours, his weapons would reduce its cities to rubble. Its oceans would boil. Its people would become nothing more than dust scattered on the cosmic wind. All ships report ready, his officer announced. We can begin the bombardment on your command, Verteeth nodded with satisfaction. Open a channel to the planet. I wish to give them one final chance to surrender. Let them know that mercy is still possible if they beg properly. On Earth, Admiral Tanaka received the transmission in her command bunker. She looked at the faces around her, officers, scientists, politicians, and ordinary citizens who had volunteered to stand with her at the end. The ambassador is calling, her communications officer reported. He is offering surrender terms. Put him through, Tanaka said calmly. Verteeth's crystalline face appeared on the main screen. Admiral Tanaka, your resistance has been impressive, but futile. You have no more tricks, no more weapons, no more hope. Surrender now, and I will spare your population from complete annihilation. Some of you may live as servants of the Conclave. Tanaka smiled. It was not a smile of defeat, Ambassador Verteeth, she said. I have a counter-offer. Before the ambassador could respond, Tanaka nodded to Dr. Okonkwo. Throughout the solar system, every human transmitter activated at exactly the same moment. Radio towers, satellite dishes, ship communications arrays, and even personal devices all broadcast the same signal, the architects. Frequency, The combined transmission was powerful enough to reach every corner of the galaxy, and the architects' network responded across the Milky Way. Systems that had slept for millions of years came to life. Ancient platforms activated on distant worlds. Communication arrays that had been silent since before the conclave existed began broadcasting again. Data archives opened, releasing information that had been hidden for 3 million years. The architect's message played on every screen, every display, every device in the galaxy. It reached trillions of beings across thousands of species. It spoke in every language simultaneously. This is the final testament of the architects. We built the network to unite the galaxy in peace. We created technology to help all species grow and prosper, and we were betrayed. The message continued, showing images and data that the Conclave had worked for millions of years to suppress. The species now called the Conclave did not discover our technology. They stole it. They murdered our people and claimed our achievements as their own. They used our network to build an empire based on lies and fear. Across the galaxy, beings watched in stunned silence. Everything they had believed about the Conclave was false. The founders of galactic civilization were not great explorers or wise leaders. They were thieves and murderers. We knew we could not stop them. The architect's message continued. But we could prepare for the day when someone would challenge their rule. We hid this message in the network, waiting for a species brave enough to fight back. Today, that species has been found. The final words echoed across the stars. The Conclave's power is built on deception. Now the galaxy knows the truth. The choice belongs to you. Within hours, everything changed. On 100 worlds, oppressed species rose against their Conclave overseers. Rebellions erupted on mining colonies, research stations, and military outposts. Species that had been enemies for millennia suddenly found common cause against their true oppressor. The Conclave fleet around Earth received desperate distress calls from across the Empire. Their forces were needed everywhere at once. The careful order that had maintained galactic peace for millions of years was collapsing. Ambassador Verteeth stared at his displays in disbelief. His crystalline body began to crack under the stress. "This is impossible," he whispered. "They are primitives." They had only 90 days. Admiral Tanaka appeared on his screen. Her eyes were calm, her smile victorious. "You gave us 90 days to prepare for war," she said. "But you forgot something important about humans. We do not just fight to survive. We fight to win. And we never fight alone." The Conclave fleet hesitated. Half their ships were already receiving orders to withdraw and defend other parts of the Empire. The other half were unsure whether to continue the attack or retreat. Verteeth made the only choice he could. "All ships, fall back. We will regroup at the galactic core and address these rebellions." The fleet withdrew. The largest military force ever assembled retreated from a single planet defended by a species they had dismissed as primitive animals. On Earth, people watched the enemy ships leave. At first, no one dared to believe it. Then, the cheering started. It spread from city to city, country to country, till the entire planet was celebrating the greatest victory in human history. But Admiral Tanaka did not celebrate. She knew the war was not over. The Conclave still had millions of ships. They would return eventually, with even greater force, unless humanity changed the rules forever. In the months that followed, Earth reached out to the rebelling species across the galaxy. They formed a new alliance, united not by conquest, but by choice. Each member joined freely, pledging to defend the others against any threat. They called it the Galactic Alliance of Free Peoples. 1 year after the invasion, Ambassador Verteeth was captured and brought before the Alliance Council. He expected to be executed. Instead, Secretary General Webb offered him something the Conclave had never shown its subjects: mercy. "You are free to go," Webb told him. "Return to your people. Tell them what you saw here. Tell them that humanity could have destroyed you, but chose not to." Verteeth looked at the human with confusion that he could not hide. "Why? After everything we did, why spare us?" Webb smiled. "Because revenge is easy. Building something better is hard. and humans have never been afraid of hard work. As Verdith's shuttle departed Earth, he looked back at the small blue planet that had defied an empire. He finally understood why the architects had chosen them. Humanity did not just fight. They inspired. They showed the galaxy that even the smallest species could stand against tyranny. They proved that courage and creativity could defeat overwhelming force. The Conclave's rule was ending. A new era was beginning. And at the heart of it all was a young species that had refused to surrender in the halls of the Alliance Council. A simple phrase was carved into the stone above the entrance. It was taken from humanity's declaration of war. It would guide the new galactic order for generations to come. We do not kneel. The galaxy had demanded Earth's surrender. Instead, Earth had changed the galaxy forever, and this was only the beginning.